Good morning, guys. Craig Geswindt here from Disney World in Orlando, Florida, coming to you with Clive the call from the UK. And today we want to talk to you guys about salt. I met Clive in Acapulco, if you guys recall from my previous video that I did with Clive. Actually, we've done two so far. The recent one was on HIV. So if you guys haven't checked that one out yet, go ahead onto my YouTube channel and you'll find it over there where we chat about HIV. But today we want to chat about a very interesting topic that when I was listening to Clive when we were in Acapulco at the conference, one of the topics that I was completely blown away by, which is the topic of salt. Salt being considered the relic and the symbol of the ocean where life started, the ocean that is still present in our bodies, and some of the things that Clive spoke about salt and some of the references used as complete. It's just mind blowing that these things are right under our noses, and we are still sick and we are still suffering from so many things when these remedies and these natural alternative healing products are right at our doorstep. So Clive, without further ado, thank you so much again for joining me on this recording. And tell us about salt. Tell us about how it affects us and why it's so important to our well-being.
Well, thanks, Craig. Salt is absolutely vital. And if you're one of these people who doesn't eat salt, it really is important to understand what salt does in the body. And when I speak about salt, I'm not speaking about table salt, the fine running powder that some people use. That sort of salt is actually dangerous to the human body. And just table salt, pure sodium chloride, really could be considered a poison. It will raise your blood pressure, it will produce dehydration in the body, a whole host of problems with table salt. And when one bears in mind that most restaurants serve you table salt, it makes eating out a sort of a fairly dangerous thing to do. Personally, I travel with my own supply of salt. Real salt, real salt, I think you could first off say is dried ocean. So what does dried ocean look like? Well, for a start, it's not white. And it's not dry. So real salt, they have a code name for it. It's called Celtic salt, or you could call it unrefined salt. And it's grey and it's damp. And even if you put it in the oven to dry it out, it will still remain damp after it reabsorbed water from the air. So the salt industry believes that you want nice, clean, white salt. So basically they bleach it, and minerals always give colour to things. So they remove most of the trace minerals from pure salt to turn it into the white stuff. And these days we're getting less and less minerals from the food that we're eating because the soils are so depleted. And more it's important for us to get our minerals from salt. So people who are using Celtic salt, the grey damp salt, the sort of benefits they get is that it regulates the water content of your body, and obviously as we are 99% water molecules, making sure that the water in our body is A, sufficient, and B, properly regulated is really important. So each time you eat processed salt, you're dehydrating yourself. Then the next thing it does is it promotes a healthy pH balance. Now, pH, which stands for potential hydrogen, is the level of acidity or alkalinity in our body. And it's very important to have a body that's running at exactly the right pH, which is roughly 7.35, which is just slightly on the alkaline side. Now, eating salt ensures that you can run an alkaline body, and how it does that is that it provides you with minerals like magnesium. And if you're eating, let's say, a normal Western diet with lots of carbohydrates, as in grains, pasta, pizza, bread, that sort of thing, lots of meat, fish, dairy produce, for example, all of those are acid producing. So your body has to keep your cells in pH balance. And so what it does, if you're eating that sort of diet and basically not enough vegetables, is it strips magnesium and all the other alkaline minerals from your bones, for instance, and from your cells from your bones to try and correct the imbalance. So by eating Celtic salt, you're going to be in a position where you're probably going to be so much healthier because you've got enough magnesium in the right places. So it's going to stop osteoporosis. It's going to reduce osteoarthritis. It's going to salt is so vital. It's just incredible. If you have enough salt, it keeps your blood sugar healthy. So if somebody is overweight, they've been eating very badly, and they're on the borders of being type 2 diabetic, for example, eating salt will help balance their blood sugar. There's been a lot of research showing that salt actually reduces the signs of aging. It's quite incredible. I think a lot of people know that, let's say you eat a food that disagrees with you, and you end up throwing up. But what they suggest you do is you use electrolytes. So basically, if you put salt in water, you put the electrolytes back in your body, meaning that your body can function properly on a cellular level. There was a very interesting thing done with salt, which just shows how important it is. About 10 years ago in England, they took large groups of school children and followed them for a year. And when school children got a cold, they divided them into 3 groups. 1/3 of the school children with colds, the parents were told, just do what you normally do. If you give them something from the chemist or the pharmacy, give them that. Then another 1/3 were told, do nothing. And the final 1/3 were told to dissolve salt in water and get the children to sniff it up their noses. So the 3 groups, the ones who did nothing did better than the ones who did pharmaceutical intervention, but the ones who sniffed salt water up their noses not only recovered the fastest, but had less colds for the whole of the rest of the year. So there's absolute evidence that salt promotes sinus health. You don't have to sniff it up your nose to promote healthy sinuses. All you've got to do is take it along with food.
Right.
So, several other things happen apart from increasing the strength of your bones and stopping sinus problems. One of the great things is that it can help prevent muscle cramps. Muscle cramps are usually a magnesium deficiency, and in real salt, the grey type of salt, there should be enough magnesium in many cases to help people stop getting muscle cramps. Some people need extra magnesium on top, but if you're getting occasional muscle cramps and you're not eating salt, you really need to consider that Celtic salt is the way forward. It regulates people's sleep. It's good for the vascular system. Everybody's got so frightened because they believe the scientists and the doctors who say, don't eat salt, you're going to have heart problems because it's going to raise your blood pressure. As I think I mentioned earlier, it's table salt that raises your blood pressure and is dangerous to the heart. But real salt really is a sort of a perfect, there's the beauty of the word medicine, but a perfect adjunct to having a healthy heart, healthy blood pressure, and so on.
Right. Wow, that's incredible. And again, every time I listen to you, Clive, I'm just blown away with, just amazement, to be quite honest. And one of the things that you mentioned there was the muscle cramps, because just to relay a story, when I used to go to the gym quite a lot, at some point I was cramping up a lot, and And one of the worst cramps that you can actually get is when you're doing your abdomen exercises and you get one of your abdomen muscles pulls. I don't know if anybody that's listening to us has ever experienced such pain. It is incredible because you can't sit, you can't stand. Every movement that you make is excruciating pain. And I remember once I was doing abdomen exercises, not realizing that I was low on salt. But what I did was I kind of beckoned one of the guys across the gym floor to get me some salt, and I just started eating this raw salt. But of course, it was completely white salt, but it did help. Okay, it was that bleach salt that Clive was talking about. And one of the things that I also noticed about my dad is that he is he eats a lot of salt, right? And when he makes his food, he puts a lot of salt in. After the food is cooked, he puts even more salt on. And one of the things that has also surprises me, Clive, is the misinformation and the amount of information out there and the confusion with regard to important things out there like salt that can actually save our lives and save us from all these dreaded sicknesses and diseases. And so, yeah, I find that very interesting. But one of the things I wanted to ask is, and I'm sure people are curious about, is the amount of salt intake that one should take in on a daily basis. I read something, and I just want to read it out here quickly about the intake of salt back in the day. It says here, the truth is, compared to our past, the average intake of salt per person per day of around 8 to 9 grams, or about 3,200 to 6,000 milligrams of sodium, is not that high. Compare that to the ancient Romans, who were estimated to have consumed around 25 grams of salt per day, which is around 3 times higher than the salt we eat today. In 1725, in France, where there were very detailed records were kept regarding salt revenue due to heavy taxation, the daily salt intake was between 13 and 15 grams per day. According to J. Weiser, salt intake in Baden, Switzerland, used to be around 15.5 grams per day, and in Zurich, Switzerland, the daily consumption of salt was over 23 grams per day. Have you looked into what the daily intake of salt is for the average person, Clive? Clive, are you still there? Hello?
Sorry about that. Well, we're lucky that we are self-regulating because we have taste buds. The problem with table salt is that it doesn't taste very salty, or not in a pleasing way. So people put on too much. But with Celtic salt, the grey unprocessed salt, generally it's self-regulating because you put it on enough, and your body tells you how much you need. And So I leave it to the individual to choose how much they want. It's important not to have vast amounts because too much sodium isn't terribly good for you. But generally speaking, I would rely on your taste buds to tell you what's what. And you mentioned the Romans, and it's interesting to note that the word salary comes from the word sal, which is salt, because the Roman legionnaires 2,000 years ago were paid partially in salt, because salt at that point was worth more than gold.
Wow!
And there are a lot of phrases used, at least in England, that relate to salt. There's a phrase which is "he's not worth his salt." There are phrases like he sits below the salt. The rich had salt, and if you were poor or considered useless, you weren't worth your salt. You weren't valuable enough to be given salt. And without salt, people get ill. The fact is that salt is absolutely vital. And in World War II, the navies of the world used whose salt, if they ran out of blood for blood transfusions, turns out you can use seawater in place of human blood in an emergency. Doesn't matter what blood type you are. And back 120 years ago, there was a French medical doctor called René Canton, spelled Quinton, like Quinton. And he did experiments, first of all, with dogs in Paris. At that point, there were a lot of stray dogs who were very sick in Paris. And he would take them off the streets when they looked like they were almost dead, drain all the blood out and replace it with seawater. And there are photographs from about 1900 showing pictures of these dogs looking absolutely terrible, and then a few days later looking much better, and then 3 weeks later looking so much better. So after he did the experiments with the dogs, he started doing experiments with human babies, and he went to the child hospital and said, look, have you got any babies who are going to die today? There's nothing more you can do, they're just going to die. He took those babies, and rather than drain the blood out, he just injected seawater into the babies. And if you go onto Google, René, I'll pronounce it the English way, Quinton, you'll see the pictures of these babies 24 hours later, 3 days later, a week later, 3 weeks later, going from absolutely looking like they're going to die any second to back healthy children again. So it just shows you that if you can switch blood for seawater, that salt must be incredibly good for us, which of course it is.
Wow, that's incredible. That's absolutely mind-blowing to think that, we can replace blood with salt. And, I mean, I was, after I heard you speak, I was just in the water all the time, and drinking up all the seawater. And in South Africa, we have people that go down especially to the sea, especially those that live inland. They go there in their thousands with buckets, and they collect the sea salt, right? They get, not the sea salt, the seawater in these big barrels, big water bottles, and we always found it peculiar why people were doing this, why they do this, right? And so now that you're speaking about this, it's mind blowing the lies that are out there from the medical industry as well, with regard to this one simple ingredient that's missing from our diets, and that can make us well. I think about my dad all the time when we're talking about salt, because he takes Epsom salts as well, to clear out his he takes it on a regular basis, and he's a lot healthier than people his age, and a lot of his own family as well, that it's always prone to sickness. They're always at the doctors, they're always going for operations, and he's as fit as a fiddle, and just always healthy, and never had to go to the doctor or any type of operation. So guys, I hope you guys are listening. I hope that you guys are taking in what has been said about salt. We will be launching a website where we'll be selling authentic products such as the Celtic salt. So if you can't find it in your local stores, and if you're concerned about the way that the salt has been made or packaged, or the manufacturers, then we are looking to get the best products out to you from Clive's company, and ship it directly to you. We're working on a solution to get them shipped at a very reasonable cost, and make sure that you get the quality products, because that's important as well. Knowing where you get your products from, the manufacturers, and the quality of these products, and that they are actually the quality that they say they are on the packaging. One thing that, especially in South Africa, Clive, where there seems to be becoming popular, is the Himalayan salt. Now, I at one point also thought Himalayan salt was incredibly healthy, and I replaced all of my table salt in my house with this pink salt called Himalayan salt, and I know that people also use it in their bath water, to get those nutrients into their bodies through their skin. Do you have any comment on that?
Well, the best salt is Celtic because essentially it's fresh. The problem with Himalayan salt is that it's not fresh. It's old. Now, there are different qualities of Celtic salt. There is the Celtic salt that occurs thousands of feet below the Himalayas, and then various Celtic salts that are available thousands of feet above ground in the Himalayas. The problem with the high above ground stuff is it's rained, and the rain has percolated through the salt mines, washing a lot of the essential minerals out. So real Himalayan pink salt, mined from the right places, is actually very good, but not nearly as good as Celtic salt, in my opinion. But it does have some interesting properties. But given the choice, I would go for the Celtic salt because you know it's right. You know the chances of getting poor quality pink salt is quite high. So one has to be careful not to get the cheap stuff. But it's, unless you really know what you're doing, you can't tell the good stuff from the bad stuff with the Himalayan. So I that would be my second choice, certainly not my first choice. But it's still okay. Just getting back to René Quinton for a minute, it's interesting to note that after he did the experiments with the babies, he started a company called Quinton after him, and that company still exists today, 120 years later, still harvesting seawater from one particular area in the Mediterranean near the Atlantic, one particular area where algae blooms twice a year in the sea, and he takes the water from this spot, and it's so pure that you can inject it straight into the body, or you can drink it. And as I say, it's been so popular for curing things that company still exists today.
That's incredible. I just want to read one last thing here before we wrap it up. It says salt is essential for almost all life, but especially humans, because we regulate temperature by sweating out salt and water. And also, just sharing my experience with this, because it's very interesting to me. Because when you sit in the sauna for too long, or you sit in the between the sauna and the steam room, you sweat a lot, and all of that salt and water starts to leave your body. And I think, of course, if Clive, you could also talk about the alcohol. I know that people take a lot of salt sometimes in between drinking alcohol because it does remove a lot of salt out of the body. Is there any way to test to see if your salt intake is too low? And is there any common testing that people can do on themselves, or do they need to go to a medical doctor or to a clinic to get that done?
That's an interesting question. I actually don't know if there is a test for salt other than are you using the real salt, and does your food taste absolutely fabulous to you? Salty enough. As I say, I think we're self-regulating there. I think our body will tell us if we want salt or not. I think it's important to realise that as we sweat, if we're having saunas, if we're doing exercise, as you say, we're sweating out minerals. And if you're not getting enough salt or not supplementing with minerals, you can die. If you're low on salt and not getting enough magnesium, and you get a muscle cramp of some kind. If you get a muscle cramp of your heart muscle, they're called heart attacks. Right. So it's pretty serious. You mentioned your abdominal cramp. If you've been either using magnesium or eating Celtic salt, arguably that wouldn't have happened. So salt's incredibly important. It's my favourite supplement, really, because it's really cheap. $10 worth would last you months and months, and it's a flavour enhancer. I would say it keeps people young. And a lot of people say, well, what about the heavy metals? You know, the mercury poisoning in the sea. Is that a problem, eating Celtic salt? And the research that I've done seems to show that even though the Celtic salt is harvested from oceans which are no longer as clean as they were, that actually the levels of heavy metals are non-detectable, which I think is good news.
Right.
Or if they are detectable, it's well below the safe limits that scientists reckon. So it's a very safe product. And given the choice, I'd certainly use Celtic salt in preference to any other. And to give an example, people in the desert who are found dead in the desert, they haven't died from dehydration. They've died because they sweated out all the minerals.
Right. And I can attest to that because I had a similar situation where I thought I was going to die, and I had to be rushed to the the clinic, and the doctor immediately put a drip on me, and he pumped me full of minerals, and I was just all the minerals are out of my body, and I can absolutely be like a first-hand witness of what you just said. Because I was kind of in and out of consciousness as I was going to the hospital because of all the minerals that are out of my body, and of course salt as well. So one of the things that I think we also just want to touch on before we wrap it up here is, a lot of people have habits that they don't realize where they are damaging their body, and perhaps this small bit of knowledge can help people. Now, there's a lot of people that drink wine. Okay, they drink a lot of wine. And some of them overdo it, right? So they'll drink 2 or 3 bottles of wine in one session, in one night. Now, I do believe that wine, especially red wine, does because you urinate a lot, and then of course all of these minerals and salt starts to leave the body. Now, would it be are these tablets that they sell? When before people go out because they know they're going to go out and do some heavy drinking. Do those tablets contain some type of salt or magnesium in them to replenish, because so they don't wake up with a hangover in the morning? I'm just trying to address practical things that people do on a daily basis that they may be harming themselves and not even realizing it.
Well, there must be loads of tablets on the market, and I can't speak for those tablets, but if I was drinking those sort of ridiculously dangerous quantities of alcohol, I would, between each glass of alcohol, I'd be drinking a very large glass of water, and I might want to put dissolve some Celtic salt in the water. If you add salt to water, it increases the pH, making it more alkaline, making it better for you. If you look at how water softener machine works in somebody's house, it works by adding salt to the water. It makes it softer. So people who aren't drinking enough water, they're dehydrated. If they add salt to the water becomes softer and it just slips down, so people are likely to drink more water that way. And if you think about what they do in a hospital, somebody who gets rushed to hospital, what's usually the first thing they do? They give you a drip of, what is it, saline?
Yes. It's got all the minerals in it. It's got a whole mix of minerals.
So, salt is a fabulous material, something that everybody needs. Nobody should be without Celtic salt.
Right. And I read something interesting. I just want to read this out as well. It says, in ancient times in ancient times, salt and/or saline solutions were used for treating bruises, swelling, infections, sweating, vomiting, and diarrhea, and as an antiseptic agent. And an ancient Roman author and philosopher noted additional benefits of salt. The teeth do not undergo any erosion nor suffer decay if every morning before breakfast some salt is kept under the tongue until it dissolves. My goodness, that is very interesting. So if you put salt under your tongue and you let it dissolve, your teeth will not erode or decay.
Well, I don't think I can agree with that. I think maybe a long time ago when people were eating a natural diet, there may have been some truth to that, but now there are an awful lot of factors why teeth decay.
Okay.
So I wouldn't say that's an ideal remedy for teeth, but you know, salt water solution is just incredible. It's basically antiseptic. So many qualities to it.
And I had a graze on my knee recently, and I was swimming in the seawater at Acapulco, and I think within 2 days completely healed without using any type of medicine. So guys, the power salt is just it's incredible what can be done with it, and just want to encourage you to look deeper into it. And I hope you enjoyed our session today with Clive the Carl. We will be launching the site with all of the products that you guys can have a look at and purchase with the peace of mind that they are manufactured at the very best quality and manufacturers. And so, Clive, I'm not sure if there's anything else you want to mention about salt. And before we go, maybe there's something else you just wanted to pop in there. But otherwise, let me know.
Well, we could go on talking about salt for a long time because there are so many things that actually it'll do. But I think the only thing is that if anybody wants to have a consultation with me, they're welcome to get in touch with me through my website, which is clivetocarl.com.
All right, awesome, guys. So you heard that. If you want to have a one-on-one with Clive, get a hold of him on his website. And I'll post it on the YouTube channel as well. And Clive, once again, thank you very much for your time and for the invaluable information shared with us. And we look forward to having you on our next webinar on alternative health and wellness. Thank you, Clive.
Thanks, Craig.
Cheers.